call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone. Thank you again for being patient with us. We're running a little late. The board did meet in closed session and we do not have any reportable actions. If you could please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this point, the board will take public comment for board policy 2350. Any person may address the board at this time, either on an agenda item or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker with a maximum time of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. Do you have any public comments concerning items on the agenda? Seeing none, are there any public comments concerning items not on the agenda?
One short one.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, in front of you, you have a DVD of Midsummer Night's Dream down at the Los Angeles Festival, and I'd like to thank Terry Gray. He came down and filmed it and got these all ready for you.
So he travels with his camera.
That's right, he does.
Well, thank you. Okay, we will see no public comment. We'll move on to our board and executive staff reports, and we'll start out. We don't have a student trustee. If she gets here, we'll let her go when she comes. Any board member reports?
It's yours. Take it.
Board member reports? We'll remember at the end. We should do board member reports at the end. That's our jog our memory. Foundation report. Mr. Foster.
Can we do a foundation report at the end? Hi, everyone. I wanted to report that we concluded our application window for summer session scholarships, and so we have 813 applicants, which is even far more than the 2014-2015 scholarship applications we have. Much easier application process, but we should be awarding those 100 scholarships for $200 a piece by the end of this next week. Our COS Foundation Project Funding Awards was announced, and so we are in the process of awarding $201,109 worth of projects awarded. 105 of that is coming from the Foundation's annual fundraising efforts and the interest income that's come from the invested assets, and the remaining amount is coming from the Porter Community Use Fund. That effectively doubles the district's above base funding that also just recently announced. The Foundation Board has established funding project priorities to help guide proposals for the next cycle. So we know now especially that an annual request is going to be viewed less favorable than a one-time request, and a capital request is going to be viewed more favorable than a paying for faculty and ongoing hired staff. And there's plenty in between that, but that's the general gist. Hall of Fame nominations, where we are using the month of April to solicit nominations for Hall of Fame honorees in the communities of Tulare, Hanford, the greater Tulare, Hanford areas, and Visalia areas. We anticipate organizing the subsequent two more event honorees as well. So we're trying to take all the next 3 years and get those kind of plotted out, so we're not up against the wall trying to find honorees. With our new donor monitoring software called Donor Perfect, we have the ability to take online ticket sales and online donations, as you may know. Right now we are accepting tickets and sponsorships for our two CSF events, the Tulare and Hanford CSF events, the equestrian teams benefit, the Beast Feast, and this is the first time that we're managing online ticket sales for COS theater productions.
And we'd like to thank him greatly for that.
We'll see how it goes, but at least it's there. It may take a while for people to get used to it, but if you've been online lately, you can pretty much purchase anything online, so it's time to get it here for COS. As I mentioned, COS is hosting CSF of California Scholarship Federation awards luncheons in the city of Hanford and Tulare for the 3 high schools in each. The city of Hanford will be celebrating 96 seal bearers being joined in to CSF, and Tulare will be celebrating 63. And so those dates, among some other dates, important dates for you, are on a small card in front of you. So you have both the place, time, and location. The date, time, and location for each of those events.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
Tim, the Hall of Fame, are you trying to make that a fundraiser?
No, this is pretty much a fundraiser event. We definitely want to cover our costs with the amount of the ticket sales, but this is about getting as many people under one roof to celebrate those that are being honored and COS in general.
I mean, I think it's an opportunity to be a fundraiser.
There's certainly potential to get some sponsorships and get ticket sales, but it hasn't been that way in the past.
I know.
Yeah. I want to get numbers first.
One of the issues that I remember having these discussions with previous superintendents is that, and I'm not very critical, but typically the selectees aren't from around here and have never given the college and don't after they leave. So if you try to make a fundraising event out of it, you might not get a lot of participation. So,
Yeah, but maybe then you go get local people to be the honoree.
well, I didn't want to say that.
Our attempts is to balance all those priorities and make sure that, again, the interesting challenge will be to make sure that we have a representation of the greater Hanford, Tulare, Visalia area, the entire district. And so even a discussion to some degree as to how that connection works. We had a football player in the 60s who's gone on to be really popular, play for COS, but his home that he stayed at was in Tipton. So does that count for Tulare or not? So those are some of the discussions that we can do.
We might even include Exeter, Wood Lake, or Rosie and Lindsay.
That's certainly show me someone famous for all in all.
Bring the nominee.
Please. No, I don't say that facetiously. I mean, if we have those, our challenge is ignorance about where people have gone on and what they've done, and that they trace back to COS. That's our challenge. And so we need the historians in our communities, all of our communities, in order to gather those and that, so that we can evaluate that.
Any further questions of Mr. Foster? Thank you. Yeah. Next up, accreditation report, Dr. Lissa.
Hi, everybody. We are working away on our warning report that's due in October. So we have, in fact, our editing team is meeting tomorrow to start putting together the first outline and draft of that report. So we're working away. A lot of what is going to be included in that report is everything we've accomplished since October, since the visiting team came. So a couple of the things I wanted just to let you know that the district is working on in regards to that is that we received a first draft of Chapter 2 of our master plan, and so our master plan task force is working on that and looking at that first draft. We have several events scheduled over the next 2 months to get a full draft of that master plan done by the end of the year, and so we have a workshop coming up with several faculty, staff, administrators and students on April 23rd, and then May 3rd we're having the Academic Senate is co-hosting a summit with the Institutional Planning Effectiveness Committee, Master Plan Task Force. Kasatha, you might be talking about this, Thea. Now I'll let her talk about the rest of it, but we have that on May 3rd, and that will be inviting community members and all of you to attend that event to look at the first. We'll be discussing the first set of goals that will be going forward in our master plan.
Jennifer, what day is that?
Okay, it's May 3rd, it's a Saturday, and it's from 8:30 until 1 or 2.
We just got an email on that today, didn't we?
Yeah. And so Thea, I'm sure, is going to be talking more about that in just a second, so I'll let her fill in on that. And then we are also working on our annual report on the strategic plan. And so we're in the process of, we've had a first draft of that the Institutional Planning and Effectiveness Committee has worked on. We're working on the second draft now, and that should be coming forward to you in the next 2 months. Okay, thank you.
Questions on our accreditation update? Got a lot shorter.
Yes,
Thanks to
because it's in
Thank you.
process now, it's a
Thank
process.
you. Okay, our superintendent president's report.
I just want to add a couple more highlights to the recent College of the Sequoias events. Lastly, you have these in e-news at home, so if you had a chance to see e-news and they're redundant, I apologize, but we did have our annual awards recognition last Thursday for our EOP&S CARE and CalWORK students. I want to thank our student services staff, in particular Sarah Todd and Kelly Pankey and the group that worked so hard together to put that event on. We had, I think we counted about 280 students earn academic honors for their high grade point averages from those 3 programs. A great number of them were here for the presentation and the awards that night. It was really a great evening, some really compelling stories. You know, the students who qualify for those programs face some of the greatest challenges, and to watch them overcome those and be successful kind of starts the beginning of us for this commencement season, the awards and those feel-good opportunities. Along those same lines, for our staff and faculty at College of the Sequoias, we put our announcement out today for the Giants of the Year. And if you'll recall, we have an opportunity for folks to nominate faculty, staff, and administrators to be honored each year as our Giant of the Year, equivalent of our Employee of the Year, in the category for administrator, for faculty, for adjunct faculty, and for our classified staff. And then we have a representative committee which has those cross-section of those members on it who review and make recommendations for the final selections. I want to thank Megan, my assistant, who runs the logistics for that and makes sure that those folks have the materials that they need to be able to make those final decisions. And we're really pleased today to announce that our Giants of the Year are in the following categories. Our Faculty Giant of the Year is Joni Jordan, who serves as our Curriculum Coordinator. Our Classified Employee Giant of the Year is Jeannie Mead, who is the classified employee currently serves the Provost Office in Tulare. Our Administrator of the Year is Debbie Douglas, who is our advisor for the Student Senate and Student Services. And our Adjunct Giant of the Year is Mr. Don Nickel. You'll get this information in the email and in an announcement, but we have a dinner that's a collaborative event actually between PACE and between faculty and the administration. It's set for early evening. I think it starts between 4:30 and 5 and lasts about an hour, hour and a half, Tuesday, May 13th, where we'll be presenting those honorees with their awards. And I think it's also the time of the year when we honor retirees and others. So you'll be getting that information, and we'll want you to put that on your calendar.
Did you leave one out?
Community.
Oh, yes, I did. Thank you, John. Thank you so much. Our community member, our community volunteer Giant of the Year is Mr. John Lane. John works at Kings County Economic Development Corporation, has been a longtime supporter from the Hanford area for College of the Sequoias. As KEDC has been connected to us for a long time and very supportive, but also dates back to working hard on the development of the Hanford Center campus and the bond campaign there. And really, most recently in the last year, he was the steadfast community volunteer who came regularly to the Accreditation Response Task Force. Every 2 weeks, 7 o'clock in the morning, drove from Hanford to be here as part of that advisory committee. And so we're honoring John this year as our community our community Giant of the Year.
He reminded me this afternoon that he also graduated from CUA.
Great.
That's great.
Hall of Famer, where's Foster?
All of those.
Sounds like a fundraising opportunity.
You want to buy a ticket?
You know, in your past, you weren't on the foundation board.
Okay, do we have any questions of Superintendent Carrizosa? Okay, we'll move on to some more reports. We'll start with Dr. Trimble with our Academic Senate report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We have a lot of things going on, actually. We're taking a full complement of people to the plenary session, the State Academic Senate plenary session, we leave Wednesday after class. This particular plenary session has a lot of very important resolutions. A lot of them have to do with accreditation and a lot of some of the new legislation that's before the legislature, and so there's going to be a lot of resolutions to vote on. In addition, there's a fairly contentious election this year, so that's going to be interesting. The Academic Senate, as Jennifer mentioned, is co-sponsoring a summit on May 3rd. It's being co-sponsored by IPEC, Institutional Planning and Effectiveness Committee, CSEA, CASAFA, they've agreed to co-sponsor with us again. We are holding it with exactly the same format as we did the accreditation summits, so that the task force, the planning task force, will be presenting their data and the goals that they have been able to get out of the data. And then we will allow time for groups of people to talk about it, come up with questions, and also come up with feedback about what they think about the goals and other things that they might want to have the task force look at. The evening before that, there is also going to be an event at the Porterville Field House as well, and that has to do with outcomes and assessments. It's going to be a friendly competition between the divisions, and people will present what their outcomes and assessments work has been, and then there will be voting, and those that win will get an award. Thank you, Stan. So it's a monetary award, so we anticipate some fairly good competition, and we hope to make this an annual event. Outcomes and assessments in the forefront of the things that we need to do to make this college better. The Academic Senate had convened a task force to look at the revised accreditation standards. The revisions came out in January, and we have until April to put in suggestions for changes to those revised standards. The task force has come up with several. We'll be presenting that to the Academic Senate for their approval so that we can submit it by the deadline, the end of April. The majority of the recommendations we have, first I think is one they should have done a long time ago, and that's to make a glossary so that when they use words that have multiple meanings and could have multiple meanings and how they're used, that they need to be explicit about exactly what they mean. We are making two recommendations to include standards that they have taken out. These are standards that were deleted that had to do with information competency. And finally, there was a request. One of the things that had been difficult in accreditation is they had the overarching standards, say standard 1B, and they had a lot of writing on it, and then they had 1B1, and then 1B1A, 1B1B2, and all that stuff. Now so everybody used to write to 1B, and then 1B1, and then 1B1A, and all that. Now they're saying they're getting rid of all that. But a lot of the terminology in the overarching statements is no longer in the actual standards you write to. So we would like clarification on whether or not we'll be held accountable for those things in those overarching statements if they're not in the standards. Because by their own bylaws, if it isn't a standard, we should not be held accountable for that. So I think they need to clarify that going forward. And the Academic Senate is still planning its retreat for the fall, so we're still in the process of doing that planning, and as soon as we have anything hard date, it looks right now like we're going to have it on a Friday here at the college. Any questions? Any questions? John?
Yeah, your thoughts about the accreditation process, you referred to Academic Senate, you're talking about the COS Academic
Yes.
Senate.
Yes.
You have confidence that your academic senate will be heard? Are there other academic senates that will join you? Or?
Yes, I mean, the state academic senate has some requests that they're going forward as well. The timeline was just such that it was not possible, and plus, the state plenary is so late. The deadline is the end of April to get these in, and the plenary is this week. There was no time to coordinate.
So I guess it answers my question about the coordination.
Yeah, right, so from my understanding, some academic senates are just leaving it to the state to go forward. I thought that seeing how we had gone through this relatively recently and intensively, and these are fairly major revisions in some cases, so that everybody needed to take a look and see if since we're kind of, it's in the forefront of our brains now, to see if we had any questions or comments about it.
Have you had the time or inclination to see if you and Jennifer see things the same? Or?
Yeah, we haven't. Our task force just finished its work last week. So we've talked about wanting to do that, but we just finished the last, and I have to write it up and get it.
And I'll just add that we actually had a chance in the fall to review the first draft of the revisions, and we did have several conversations about it. And P and I were in line with our recommendations.
Well, I'm not suggesting you do or don't do anything, except that if you do a concur, get more power.
And that's what we were hoping to do, is once it gets, I want the Senate to approve it, so that it's officially from the Senate, and then we can go forward, and if it's decided, it could then come from the college as well.
The other thing that's happening, John, is the superintendent presidents across the state are having the opportunity to get in front of the ACCJC and provide our direct feedback as a group, as a cohort. And so the last two meetings that I was at, we shared a lot, presidents did, about the conversations we're having with our academic senates, or the opportunities we have to sit in and hear the concerns of our academic senates. And everything I've heard and seen so far is that administration and academic senates are pretty closely aligned in the kinds of things that we want to provide response to differently. So they're hearing that as a pretty significant push. So I think it's complementary of each other. Even though we might not have had the time to be sitting face to face, it's coming across that way in all the meetings that I'm in.
I just wanted to add that we did, with our first round in the fall, I took the recommendations from across the district to our chief instructional officers meetings and made those recommendations to the ACCJC there, and the majority of the ones that we made were put into draft 2. So they did listen, and they did make a lot of changes that we recommended.
It sounds like a lot of them are streamlining, not necessarily taking,
Well,
would you say it's streamlining or taking some stuff out that's...
we went, at the
Or both.
Accreditation Institute we went to, they actually did a comparison, and it's longer. It has more complex phrases than the previous accreditation standards. So the idea of streamlining it isn't, I'm not sure they did. Part of what they did is they took out some of the things that were kind of mundane. Like they used to have a huge set of standards that had to do with what has to be in the catalog. They just pulled that out and said this has to be in the catalog. It's not a standard that you have to write to now. So some of that has dropped out, which is nice. But they've added things in. I would say the area that I saw the most change in is in the planning, 1B. 1B now has, it's not only planning, but they call it integrity and ethics. So they've added all kinds of standards that have not just to do with planning in there,
that you have to report on.
that we have to report on. And that's partly some of the issue. They don't define well what some of those things are that they're requiring. One thing that they have changed pretty quickly before they actually had a meeting is at the Accreditation Institute, we were told that when these were voted on, they were going into effect immediately. So that people who had to submit their reports in October, their comprehensive reports, had to use them. That has been changed. There was a huge pushback with that, and now I believe it's 2016.
Well, it seems fair.
Yes, it
That'd be like
was
starting over.
unrealistic to try and be up to somebody.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Trimble. Do we have a cost of president's report, Ms. Reed?
has issued a complaint against related to Costa's charge that the district illegally imposed a cap on health benefits. Costa is also aware that the district is not in agreement with the PERC complaint. The Faculty Association is disappointed that further legal action is required to solve an issue that now spans back to 2009. Costa looks forward to the PERC hearing that is scheduled for May 15th. We are confident that the master agreement and employee rights will prevail.
Thank you. Do we have a CSEA president's report?
Nope.
No report. Really, Steve? I'm
Yeah.
thinking that would be the first time ever.
I know, Brent wants to get out of here, so he told me to shut up.
Not true. Not true.
Uh-oh, Mr. Nichol, pressure's on. Do we have a soft report?
No report.
Is there a basketball game on or something?
Is there?
We'll move on to our information items. First up are board policies and administrative procedures revised. Mr. President.
Okay, for your information tonight and a first reading are some revisions to board policies and also an opportunity to see some changes that have been made in board procedure. We'll start with AP 2410, and this is the policy, actually the administrative procedure on how to do policy and administrative procedures. And it's going through another revision because we've been through this and are continuing to go through this interesting year of implementing our governance and decision-making manual and trying to continually work with the practices now and refine them and clarify and get questions answered. So you can see using our coding that if something is new, being proposed new, you're going to see it in bold. If something has been updated or recommended for deletion, you're going to see it with a strike through. And most of what you see on that first one, AP 2410, is clarifying kind of the sequential process used for both the board policy and an administrative procedure when they move through the process for approval. So APs, as you know, are kind of the how-to description of BP, which board policy is what we do in the actual guidelines. So administrative procedures don't require board approval. We bring them to you for information so that you can see how the adjustments are being made to Administrative Procedure 2410. The companion to that, 2410 and 2510 go together. We do have a board policy and an administrative procedure for you to look at on 2510. And 2510 is the participation in local decision making, and this one's probably had the most attention paid to it. It is being brought into alignment with our governance and decision-making manual. And I think the primary gist of this revision over what we've held previously is previously we had a policy on participation in local decision-making that was built around describing how the 10+1 affected that decision-making process between the academic senate and the board and their designee. What this does is it delineates that there are other parties involved in the decision-making process now. Specifically, it references, as you can see on the first page at the bottom, how do staff, which would translate into classified staff, participate in the decision-making process, and then students, how does student decision-making participate in the process. And then when we get to the third section, academic senate, we actually go to the effort now to reference AB 1725 and Title V and to identify that the decision-making priority that had been in place in our policy for a number of years now is specific to the 10+1 items. And so this isn't changed significantly in that regard, but it's clearer now. It identifies the 10+1 items as applying to the academic senate and not the privilege of students or staff. And it identifies again those areas where the board will primarily rely upon the advice and judgment of Senate, or those decision-making areas where the board would seek to reach mutual agreement, and how those are carried out. So this is the first read, and you can see again what's in bold is new and what's being recommended for revision or elimination as a strike-through. And then the next two, 3250, board policy and administrative procedure, have to do with institutional planning. And this goes to the integrated planning manual that was born out of our accreditation response period in the task force. And again, you can see that it's being brought up to date now with the language and the titling of the manual and the labeling of the groups involved in the planning process so that it's consistent with what we now have in the integrated planning manual. The administrative procedure, again, does the same thing. You can see that there's a sizable chunk that's been added, but then in exchange for that, the strike-through shows you a sizable piece that's being deleted because a number of things that we had previously in administrative procedure are now clearly spelled out in the integrated planning manual. And so the procedure references the manual and takes you there for that direction. And then finally, we have first reading of Board Policy 3260, which is institutional program review. And you'll recall that program review was in transition last year as well. This year we completed program review under what the prior model was, and we've undergone training now since January in what program review will look like going forward in the new design. And so this aligns now, this board policy aligns with what's in our integrated planning manual and what our integrated planning manual has as a description for institutional program review. Specifically, there's a few general additions and deletions, but specifically it identifies the individual units, that individual units will now do program review and that they all will do program review annually. You'll remember before we had a cycle, a 5-year cycle for program review, and then, or a 5 or 6 year cycle for a comprehensive program review, and then something a little more frequent for annual updates. That's now been replaced with a smaller, shorter, more streamlined program review process to be done annually by each individual unit. And that's also been companioned with TrackDAT, which is the new automated system for inputting, tracking, assessing, and querying data out of the information that we use for program review. So these are all first readings for your information tonight. If you have any questions, we can try to answer those for you. If you formulate questions between now and next board meeting, the policies will be back before you for a second reading, and we can try to answer any questions you might have then as well.
Okay, so is it fair to say then, between now and our next meeting, if there were some sort of issues or concerns from the academic senate, they would come forward at the second reading or at the first?
These are all before you now, having been read first and second through academic senate. That's the notation that you see at the top there, Lori. We tried to give you that. So you
But
know the
nothing's
date.
been changed since then?
Correct.
John?
If academic senate or any other group has something to say about it, we can expect to do that tonight.
If there were any concerns about that, you would expect to hear those tonight.
I have one concern, so
Please.
it has to do with 2410,
Mhm.
and it's fine the way it is, we'll leave it that way. But I might suggest on number 2, on the second line, replace the word necessary with appropriate. And the word necessary is in the next to last line, and I also use the word appropriate. Necessary is the guy who over, appropriate is more encompassing.
I see.
I don't agree or not, if you don't, then leave it like it is.
Okay. But that's what these are for, John, so that you as board members have the opportunity as well.
And I'd be anxious to hear any comment or any other consistency on the matter, if they have any.
I think one of the reasons there may not be comments as we might have anticipated a couple months ago is that one of the things that we did internally with the process on these is Thea, as academic senate president, discovered partway through this process that the distribution list we were doing for the first 30-day review, and then the follow-up to that wasn't including everybody that Academic Senate had intended for it to include. So, to make a long story short, we really needed to take some of the key policies, 2410 and 2510, back through Academic Senate to be re-agendized or agendized for the first time because they were inadvertently missed in the email distributions. We weren't getting them out to Sandra. Sandra wasn't automatically putting them on the agendas. So a 30-day period was going by, and in our office we were thinking, wow, that's awful quiet. Nobody had any input on those. For some reason we didn't think that was right. And so when we double-checked, we discovered that it was just not getting them circulated well. So they've been back through circulation, and then after that, Thea and I spent some time individually sitting down, and I pushed draft language back and forth between her and I until we resolved really what we thought were all of the either lack of clarification or in some cases even the philosophical differences. So what you see before you tonight has been pretty darn well vetted.
Lori, I for one, and if we don't hear from any constituency, we'll assume that they either support it or leave it.
Okay.
We might.
That's fair. Yeah, no, I would not concur with you. Any other board member comments or questions on board policies or procedures? Okay. Okay, our district high school outreach program.
Okay, thank you for a little bit of time tonight, and I won't take too long, but you'll recall when we held the retreat this year and we redefined and reprioritized the board's annual priorities. We wanted to bring to your attention priority number 6 that you just adopted, which states that we would try to increase strategies to promote College of the Sequoia's educational programs and opportunities to K-12 districts and high schools throughout our district and conduct an annual report to the board. Tonight's our opportunity to do that. What we've attached for you is a schedule of activities and presentations that between myself and the vice presidents we've committed to and are currently either finished with or are making, reaching out to our feeder high schools throughout our service area. And the first page shows you a commitment we made to go back out. This is really after our accreditation letter arrived in February, and go back to personally meet face-to-face with every high school faculty of the high schools that serve, that feed in our service area. So the vice presidents and myself got schedules of those respective faculty meetings. We got permission from principals to go out and have a couple of minutes on a faculty meeting agenda. And we actually tried to honor the fact that even though we get a lot of information about accreditation out to high school students, and we send them stuff on Facebook, and we send information to their parents, that one of the best ways to really get information to students is to put it in the hands of their teachers who they're with 6 hours a day, and they see for 1 or 2 periods a day, 5 days a week. And oftentimes high school kids just confide in their faculty and their teachers, and they talk to them and they ask them for input and advice. So we made a point of going out and meeting with all of the faculties. We gave them an update there of the 7 key areas that you can see. We talked about accreditation update, some ideas for how we could bring the highest need courses to their high school students to be able to help their high school students accelerate their success at College of the Sequoias. Questions about assessment, about counseling services, about our degree programs. So a number of pieces of information we took out and shared with the high school faculties. They were very, very appreciative. I think the VPs would tell you that each opportunity we had to talk to faculty, they were very appreciative of the information. And I really believe that that translates into greater levels of confidence among our students in College of the Sequoias, both now and going forward in the future. The second arm of that outreach program this year was to go out and make presentations to the actual high school boards of trustees. And we have those all either scheduled or to be scheduled and completed by the end of this month. And so we have an opportunity to to get out and to see all of those high school boards, to get on their agenda officially, to be able to spend 10 minutes or so presenting to them. And you can see we take a PowerPoint presentation out there, and what we're showing them is the data in items 1 through 8 there under that high school board of trustees presentations. How many full-time students are enrolled as first-time students from COS from their high school? What are the typical course loads of those first-time students from their high schools? Are they full-time versus part-time? What are their declared goals? Are they here for transfer degree or vocational, technical, or other? How do they do in our gateway courses? How do they place into English and math, and by what percentages, and how do we support those students if they come in needing prerequisite skill development? We show them the success rates based on the most recent term. In this case, it was our fall term success rates that we've been sharing. We show them the fall-to-fall persistence rates, and then the success rates in completion of their degrees and certificates. Again, the boards have been very receptive and appreciative of the information. I think they appreciate knowing that we're not bringing information out to try to tell them what they're doing wrong or what they're doing right or what they can do better. We're taking information out to show them the status of their students when they come to COS and the kinds of support systems we have in place to partner with them to help improve the student success here. And I also, in the presentation to the boards, reference back the same information we're sharing when we're talking with the faculties. So I think by and large it's been very well received. We wanted you to see the level of activity. We wanted you to see the dates and the kind of material that you can count on your high schools receiving this spring.
I would just personally like to say, I know I've heard from teachers from each of the high schools saying how positive the presentations were and how they enjoyed seeing COS being present in that capacity there. And then I would also like to say I heard from the board in Tulare and how they appreciated the presentation. So on behalf of my board and my constituents, it's been received very well. Any other comments? John?
Question. We have 18 high schools in our district. I counted them. How many of those currently have, do we offer 251 in? English 251?
Yeah, actually out at their high school sites,
Yeah.
I think one.
Just corporate. Item 2, we're talking about it here, well, and so then you, apparently, when we went out and talked to the faculty level people, we brought that up, and what was the reaction?
Actually, it worked a little bit in the reverse, John. Every meeting that we've gone to, especially when we've talked with the faculties, at the end, I always ask them, are there any questions you can ask of us? And 100% of the high school faculties asked, are we going to bring back the Bridge program? The Bridge was a popular program among the high school faculties. And what I've shared with them is that what we used to call articulated courses and what we used to call Bridge classes have evolved. Bridge had some funding attached to it, and we discontinued that when the grant funding ran out. What I talked to them about was this Pathways to College type partnership, and I constantly use Corcoran as the poster child. That's the example where I've described how we took the data that we received from seniors who have come in from your school, and we've tried to offer you a course on your campus or out in your community that would address the needs of those incoming seniors so that when they get to COS, they're at a better starting place. And I've had 100% of the high school faculties and administrations be supportive of wanting something like that, some type of an opportunity like that to be built into their community.
In Corcoran, you're also offering English 1A, right?
Yeah, it's a 2-semester package, John. As you know, when you schedule high school seniors, you put them in 251 in the fall semester, and then we moved them to English 1 in the second semester. So when those 28 students get here from Corcoran High, they've met their English prerequisite and they've gotten their college English out of the way, and they can move right into their social science and psychology and others.
You talked to the 17 schools about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Very successful, very excited. Our challenge right now, I'm working with Dr. Lacerna, we're weaving it in, John, with the student success requirements that we have to meet. We're building it in as one of our student success strategies under our current district objective. And so our challenge always, because those are courses that you add later, you add them after your regular schedule is set. They come kind of on demand. Some schools will want that opportunity, some won't. So we've got to look for the faculty that are able to teach those. And so we want to make sure that there's a qualified faculty pool out there. The process that we go through is consistent with our master agreement. We would have to offer those late add classes to existing faculty first. We go through that process. Then we start down our current adjunct, and then we look for additional adjunct in the area where we might be short.
Are you worried about the risk at all of getting excitement out there and not being able to deliver?
Well, we've approached it. I'm not worried about that, and I'll tell you why. Because we've approached it from the standpoint of it can be possible if we work together. We have to partner together, and that might mean that district, if we exhaust all of our steps that we're required to, our full-time faculty, our adjunct faculty, and we don't have enough qualified people, we might need their help in identifying those potential adjunct faculty. And so they've taken it on as part of the partnership to look for either among their own staffs themselves or in their community who the educators are that can meet the minimum qualifications to possibly be an adjunct faculty for us and teach a course.
Cool, I don't have any more questions. I just think this effort is brilliant.
Thank you. We're excited about it.
Particularly in remote places like Cutler or Rosie, you hear that? Cutler or Rosie.
He smiled. He definitely heard you.
Earl actually accompanied me the night I presented to the Orosi board. He was there, and so he'll be there Wednesday night. This Wednesday night I present to the Wood Lake board. He'll be there.
You know, in rural places that have a lot of poor people, this is a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, they were, Cutler Rossi were very receptive and excited about something like this happening.
Any further questions?
Stan, I know that the board meeting schedule will probably be be done on an annual basis. Do you see the faculty being annually, or that not a need for that?
It's been a busy schedule to keep, Ken. I think what I'd like to do is, there may not be the same high need to go out and talk to every faculty annually, but I'd like to take the group of faculties and put them on a rotation so that I'm doing maybe 5 a year, every year. And then within a 3-year period, we're always seeing the faculty firsthand. But we are committed to our board presentations annually.
Now, are we sending counselors out to the high schools now to schedule students?
We don't have the actual registration to go package as we used to, Earl, but we do have a series of outreach strategies which do involve counselors going out and providing information. Do you want to comment on anything specific, Brent, that you know we're working on right now?
Sure. Our outreach team visits every high school in our district 2 to 3 times, generating interest and signing students up to take the assessment test for COS. Then our assessment team actually goes to each of our feeder high schools and allows the students to take the assessment test on their campus. At that point, we work with their high school counselors and the students to arrange a time to come see a COS counselor here on our campus. And what we've done this year, that was always the bottleneck to getting students signed up for classes here, is they needed to see a counselor, and we didn't always have enough availability. This year we've opened up Saturday and evening counseling sessions specifically for high school students, and that's going along great. I think we assessed 1,700 students at the high schools, which is the most ever, and I think we have so far our counselors have seen about almost 2/3 of those, 1,100 and something. And once they see a counselor, they're open to come back at the end of this month and go through our STEPS program one more time, which is a Saturday event, which they come in and sign up for all their classes, because they've taken the assessment test and they've seen our counselors at pretty much we've been as accommodating as we can, taking the assessment test on their own campus and having high school specific Saturday and evening counseling appointments here on our campus. And so that makes them eligible to go through the STEPS program, which is essentially just signing up for their classes with student ambassadors and student services personnel there to help them in our computer labs.
That's good data, thanks, Brent. But I guess I like hearing the numbers.
Yeah.
Those are big numbers. Any further questions? Okay, at this point, we will look at our consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any board member or any person in the audience and considered as a separate agenda item. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent calendar? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Sherman, seconded by Mr. Ennis. Do we have any further comments or questions? All those in favor of approval of the consent calendar signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we are on to our first action item of the night, and that is our bid award for the LED retrofit for site lighting proposition under Proposition 39. Mr. Johnson.
Light emitting diode, that's what LED stands for, it's a new term. We've got some money that came from Proposition 39. COS's allocation was $303,000 and change. Coupled that with some energy rebate money of about $29,000. And we were one of the first, we're in the first group to get our allocation from the Chancellor's office. So we put together a scope of work to try to hit the money, which was to retrofit some of the exterior lighting areas at the Visalia campus, and also named the Hanford campus within that project proposal. Not exactly sure where our money was going to end up. So as we did the bids here, that's one of the reasons that you see 7 additive alternates, was to make sure we spent our money. Those alternates included about $100,000. And the market was still very competitive. It actually came in below our estimates by $100,000. So it's very, very competitive. We got good bids. We have a good vendor that we'd like you to award the bid to, AC Electric of Visalia. We had someone who made a clerical error. We pulled them out. So basically, yeah, so we did. We feel very good about this. The projects need to be done by June 30th. We're on track for that. Big issue across the state, because everybody's doing lighting retrofits, is the availability of lights. So we are in communication with the Chancellor's office. We're on track to finish by June 30th. I would like to say one thing. Because of the amount of money, because of the low bid overall, we are already planning the first change order. That change order will be to make sure we don't leave as little money on the table that goes back to Sacramento, because the bids came in so low, even with our 7 alternates.
So say that again about.
You get a certain amount of money from
I
the state.
understand, you don't want to send any of them back, but how are you going to do that?
We'll
Like
change
change
order.
order?
Change order will spend more.
Add lights. Should we add more lights or
Yes,
better lights?
add more scope. Because the scope of work is not going to fill the whole entire Visalia campus, Greg. We were hitting the alternates to try to, pieces of scope of work. So there's still plenty of exterior left in Visalia. So we asked for some proposals already, some pre-proposals, trying to hit a number. So we're going to do the maximum legal change order. I know that breaks your heart, bro. Bring that change order back to you.
You don't want us to approve the change order.
No, not far yet. This gives you pre-notice.
How many,
I'm back.
want us to just give you a blanket approval?
It's a good change order.
Just one.
It's a good change order.
How much do you expect the power bill to go down?
There is a number that the utilities have estimated. I didn't put it into dollars for you. My guess is about $30,000 a year. It's about a 10-year payback on these lights.
That's a 10% return on their
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah, it's
Their investment, yeah, better.
Yeah.
With that, it is recommended that the board award the bid for the LED retrofit for site lighting to AC Electric Company of Visalia.
So moved. Or you, John?
Oh, you were way quicker than John.
I'll second it.
Been moved by Mr. Mann, seconded by Mr. Zumwalt. Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Moving on to item 10, our public hearing on the district and CSE reopener for collective bargaining.
At our last board meeting on March 10th, both CSEA and the District Sunshine, their initial collective bargaining proposals on reopeners. And we've had a month now for the public to review those Sunshine proposals in HR. And tonight we officially are to give the public an opportunity to comment on those Sunshine proposals. The purpose of tonight is to conduct a formal hearing to allow the public to comment.
We will formally open a public hearing on our CSEA reopener for collective bargaining proposals. Are there any public comments? Motion. Thanks, Tom. We'll move on to item number 11, which is proposed board study sessions that we would like to approve tonight.
Okay, you'll recall, yes, thank you, Madam President. You'll recall at the board planning retreat in January, as we always do, we had a list of items that we thought might warrant a little bit of additional time and require us to consider a separate non-action agenda for a study session. As has kind of been our custom, we like to take a look at the final district budget before the June meeting when we actually have to adopt it. So working backwards on the two bullets you have there for study sessions, we'd like to recommend that we hold a board study session on Wednesday afternoon, May 28th at 4 p.m. to show you a draft of what the district budget will look like a couple weeks before it comes before you for its final action. This is late enough in May that we'll be able to make adjustments associated with the May revise, but also gives you an opportunity to have a couple weeks between seeing the draft and actually having to adopt it. And then the second one has to do with the bigger solar project process that we're moving through right now to consider a solar project for the district. And we've been doing the homework as directed for that project, and we're proposing a possible study session at the end of this month, which would be on a Tuesday evening, April 22nd, again, or Tuesday afternoon, April 22nd, again, starting at 4 p.m. These study sessions would be information agendas, no action items, really an opportunity for the board to digest these two topics a little bit more thoroughly, and we plan for them to last about an hour.
Do we have any board members that cannot make those dates or?
The 22nd, April 22nd is not a problem. May 28th, I honestly don't know at this time. My son's returning from the Persian Gulf. We haven't seen him in a year and a half. He's on the East Coast. And my wife will decide whether I'm coming.
Yeah, we understand that.
And if I miss it, I'll make sure that I come over afterwards and impose upon you and Christine to bring me up to speed.
We would be happy to do that, John.
Question on the solar.
Yes.
When I attended the Visalia Unified School District solar
dedication or
right when they announced it, that I got to talking with their board president, and we're meeting with them, aren't we? With the Visalia Unified in the city, and I had asked, or I think suggested to you that we talk to them and learn what they've learned from them.
Right.
Is that before this meeting? Or?
It will be right after.
Right.
28th.
I think we meet with them jointly on the 28th. But again, at this meeting, we're going to be presenting information and just our homework up to this point, Greg. It wouldn't preclude us from
So we may be better educated to ask their school board on the 28th the questions.
Well, and we've done some of that staff communication with them already, because Christine and I both have lots of contacts in Visalia Unified to work with their facility staff. Did you want to comment, Christine?
I was just going to say, I have talked to them quite a bit, but I could, in a more formal manner, sit down with their facilities folks and glean what else we might be able to bring to our presentation.
Well, because they're talking about saving $700,000 a year
Well,
in addition to their cost.
Yeah, I think their scope was larger. And they passed a bond for theirs, so their outlay was not from their general fund.
I actually already have a copy of how all of their projected savings were calculated, and I kind of dissected it, and I would tend not to agree with some of the assumptions. I think they were fairly liberal assumptions in them. Not to say, I mean, they may or may not. Eric knows I'm very conservative, so I already talked to our consultant, and we're tightening the ratchet with some very conservative assumptions to be more than safe. It'll be interesting. I usually believe that kind of projection when I see them actually lower their utilities budget by that amount, but
It's kind of like when our assessed values in Tulare were projected.
A heads up too for you, Stacy, is that at that meeting, one of the things I'm going to have in the back of my mind is the potential decisions we might make that could be in conflict with whatever discussion is going on with the city regarding a specific plan, and perhaps the city's participation and other things. It would make us wish we hadn't dedicated some properties to something like this.
Yeah,
So, and I know I'm talking around circles here, but.
No, I understand that.
Well, I'm not sure everybody else does, so it's trouble, but, wherever we put these things, they gotta stay put for a long time.
Right.
And we make sure they're not in the way.
Yeah, what Board Member Zumal is alluding to is that we have a task force working right now, which has a combination of staff and elected officials from the city of Visalia and the College of Sequoias. Eric and Christine both sit on that task force with me from our district. And we're talking about planning, actually mini master planning in the area directly adjacent to the current Visalia campus. The city's gone through their general plan, or is going through their general plan revision this year, very complicated and extensive process, and we wanted to pay special attention to the area adjacent to the Visalia campus so that the right ordinances and city guidelines and vision and partnership was put in place so that it doesn't over time either diminish in its property value or become less attractive to compatible commercial vendors. You don't want the area around your college to run down over time, is the bottom line. Because of that, we've looked at expanded needs for the campus when the campus grows. Where might future parking be? Might we need to take some of the current parking space we have and consider multi-story parking structures? And exactly where might those be located? And I think what John's pointing out is we want to make sure that we don't make a long-term decision to put our solar energy project in the same place that we might want later to put a multi-story parking to be able to accommodate this adjacent planning that we're doing to the Visalia campus. So we need to keep those two. We have the right people involved in both of those. We need to keep those two priorities moving parallel to each other and not colliding with each other.
And is that somehow incorporated obviously in our master plan?
Yes. Our facilities master plan, yes.
It goes actually, if I go further than that too, the city of Visalia has an interest in having businesses that can prosper off of us. And they also have an interest in the college building a future transfer's office in Visalia instead of Cutler Rossi. And I'm being sarcastic, instead of Visalia, I mean, instead of Tulare or
Hanford.
And there's all kinds of things that could be mutually beneficial, including joint ownership of a parking structure. And, so when we start thinking about what this whole region looks like, we make sure that we don't put solar panels somewhere we can't move in 30 years.
Okay.
I move we approve the proposed study date.
Second.
By Mr. Sherman, seconded by Mr. Loomis. Any further questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, on item number 12, our Veterans Day, October 14-15. Dr. Lissona.
Hello, everybody. We were asked at the last meeting to revisit the 2014-15 academic year calendar, and specifically that was approved in 2011 by the then College Council and Board of Trustees. And at that time, the approved calendar had Veterans Day on the Monday as the holiday rather than the actual day, Tuesday, November 11th. So what I was supposed to bring back, was asked to bring back, was information on what the impact would be of making the change for the 14-15 calendar at this time. And if any, I do have several of the committee members from the calendar committee here who report on Adam, and I welcome them to do so. But in general, the calendar committee supports the board's direction to hold Veterans Day on the day. But we also researched the impact to change the 2014 calendar that was approved prior to some of this, well, or I should say well before this discussion. So in the research that we found, or that we had, was that the biggest, one of the big impacts is on our lecture lab classes. So we have classes, and it's in the attached handout, that meet on Mondays and Wednesdays, and the majority, well, not the majority, but a larger number of them that meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So what that potential impact is of the 60 labs that meet on Tuesdays, they would miss a lab. So there's no makeup day, so they miss the entire lab for that semester. And there's not a time way to make up that lab. And also for nursing, there are 10 nursing clinical rotations meeting on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. They meet Tuesday, Wednesday, and they're scheduled in 1 month blocks. And so, and each of those has to meet a certain number of hours. We don't have nursing rotations on Mondays, and so the impact would be to those 10 Tuesday classes, and we'd have to adjust the schedule and add hours to those nursing clinical rotations. Probably the largest impact would be there are 12 short-term classes that are directly affected by this. When we have short-term classes, they're scheduled by the hour, and so they would actually have to, taking that day away, we would have to increase the daily meeting hours, which could, if there's already students enrolled in those classes, so there's a potential impact that it would conflict with another class that they have. And so we would have to basically cancel those 12 classes, add them again, with the new hours, re-enroll the students, and then determine if they have any scheduling conflicts at this time. So that was the basic impact on the academic schedule for those classes.
Stan, is this stuff we'll encounter every year by making Veterans Day the day that Veterans Day is actually on? It seems to me that they're always going to have the lecture lab because of just how it's going to work.
Yeah, I think, part of what we're encountering right now is how Monday, Wednesday, and then Tuesday lab classes are scheduled. The thing, I guess, that would have been have made less of an impact is had we had the guideline before we approved this calendar that we weren't going to be able to have an alternate day to when we celebrate or when we recognize Veterans Day. We've set ourselves up for the conflict. What Jennifer's pointing out to you is what we'd have to change. And if we had known from the beginning, we would have scheduled to avoid much of the conflict to begin with. We would have pushed days out somewhere else on the calendar, on one end or the other, but we would have avoided the conflict from the beginning, or some of it. So,
in planning going forward, these labs won't get missed, the 53 and the 60. I guess I'm just thinking whenever this Veterans Day is.
Yeah, my understanding is it's happening because we would be making the change after the fact.
Yes.
In other words, after the classes have been scheduled.
Correct. The lab situation would stay. The lab classes, primarily, you have way more labs that are offered Tuesday, Thursday. That would be an issue going forward. A lot of the lab, not all, but quite a few of the lab classes, they're offered at times so that they don't conflict with lectures. So, and then you have the templates for the majors, and those are the only times they can offer them, period. So going forward, if Veterans Day falls on a Tuesday, that will be an ongoing issue. So that isn't going to go away just because it was the last minute or plan for it.
And going back, that was why the original decision for the upcoming years, we had kept the Veterans Day on Monday, was the biggest impact, or the biggest feedback was from the faculty, because it does impact that many, 60 labs, as well as the nursing rotations when we have it on a Tuesday or Thursday, or on an actual day versus the Monday.
what happens, this might be a question for you, but what happens if for another reason, for a different reason, faculty member is out ill, or what happens when a lab is canceled for another reason? It can't be that we never cancel a lab ever.
No,
So it happens. How do they make those up?
they don't.
Okay.
I mean, unless you have built into your schedule, and most of us don't, a makeup lab day.
Cushion, yeah.
Yeah, that generally isn't done. It's a lab that.
So we have, occasionally we have had to adjust for a missed lab for other reasons, and faculty do that within the scope of their own grading and assessment and everything
Right.
else. Okay.
So what frequently happens if it's an unexpected, like an illness, you're out with an illness, you take a look at your lab schedule and you say, well, this lab is really important, so I'm gonna bump a different one.
Yeah, okay.
And make sure that they do this lab.
Yeah.
So you make a choice out of which of the labs you're gonna drop from there going forward.
So on the years when a Tuesday, Veterans Day fell like it did this year, if we had the direction or if we had the expectation that we were always going to celebrate Veterans Day on that day, then faculty would make these adjustments from the beginning of scheduling their lab, as opposed to, but Thea's right, the issue's always going to be there, but you get to make the adjustments sooner.
Because otherwise they're missing a lab or lecture on Monday too, right? If on Monday or Wednesday, they're going to miss their lecture. Okay.
So what the committee is recommending is that for the current year, we maintain it on a Monday, and then in the future, we go with the actual Veterans Day, whatever happens to fall.
Yeah, and we actually Thea we were looking at the AP today, the administrative procedure, and we could potentially add that to the administrative procedures that, the district will hold Veterans Day on the actual day. We could take the next step and go forward and revisit that AP. Thea found another error in the AP, so we need to revisit it anyway, so we could add that
I think if it's,
administrative procedure.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, I think if it's a priority for the board, which it has surfaced as such the last couple of years, that we do look at it at the policy or procedure level, so that in fairness to the calendar committee, they start the process knowing what their parameters are, rather than, yeah, or having worked hard on something, got it all into place, only to be reminded or to find out, that this isn't really, we didn't want to juggle the Veterans Day that way. If we do it from the very beginning, it's better.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think I'm probably the most outspoken person on this topic. And it's not only the symbolism of when we should celebrate it. In this particular case, we should look at the rest of the world too. Cities, counties, banks, private business, everybody celebrates it on the day, and that should be a factor. At the same time, I'm sympathetic to not undoing what we've already done, and so I'm not in opposition to everything here. As far as future years are concerned, if you know that you're going to have one less lab day available, you're going to be able to adjust your curriculum to make it work in the future years. So I guess I want to bring in some reasoning here, but I'm supportive of the recommendation.
That motion.
Yes, it is.
I'll second.
Been moved by Mr. Zumwalt, seconded by Mr. Nunes. All those in favor of accepting the recommended action based on the data to keep the 14 calendar as is, and in the future, make Veterans Day on Veterans Day, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank
And
you.
I know on the behalf of the curriculum, or the calendar committee, we thank the board for their support.
Thanks for the information you brought us to that.
It means a lot, so we appreciate it.
Okay, stay up there.
I'll stay up here.
We'll conclude with our last item, which is curriculum.
Okay, you have the curriculum report in front of you, and it's a lengthy one, as will the next one will be lengthy as well. As you are familiar, the first several pages are course modifications, and that's pages 1 through, oh my gosh, 7, page 1 through 10 course modifications, and they're all for, again, repeatability issues, the 5-year review, the course ID alignment for our transfer model curriculum. That's the first 9 pages, and running into number 10. There are page 10, several new courses, and the justifications are in the right column. So we have a new construction technology to align with the certificate. Those first 2 are there. We're at an additional PE course for, is being added 2 additional PE courses. On this page 11, 2 police academy courses that are updated for the post mandates, and then a new course for the community college pathway to law school, that program that we have applied for, and we'll be able to talk more about it at the next board meeting, because that course is there. And then 2 new, 1 new associate degree for transfer on page 12 in mathematics, a new certificate for electrical and on page 12, also a new certificate for electrical on page 13, and a modification of the paralegal certificate, and a modification to the physical therapy assistant certificate. Yeah, it's kind of, it gets pretty crazy the next month, trying to get everything through before summer. Yeah, we actually require board approval by the board, the May board meeting for any changes that will be happening in the next year. So that's why the push to get them all through.
Move we approve.
Moved by Mr. Grant, seconded by Mr. Sherman. Questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do you have any further comments, questions? Anybody in the audience? Thank you for staying till the end. Just go ahead and ask.